Every family argues, doors slam, voices rise. But in 2018, one teenage argument over the Wi-Fi didn't end in resolution. It ended in murder. Imagine not being able to breathe for the entirety of this video. This is the case of Alexus Watkins. Alexis Brianna Watkins lived in Macon in Georgia with her mother Latoya, her 16-year-old brother Kevon, her 13-year-old brother, and her young son. She was a devoted mother and daughter with a lot of time and respect for her mum, often praising her publicly on social media, sharing messages filled with love and gratitude, especially on her birthday. Alexis had recently become engaged to her school sweetheart and father of their 3-year-old son. She would express her affection through countless photos and videos, showcasing their love to the world, excited for the future they were building. But on the 2nd of February 2018, that future was shattered. That afternoon, Latoya picked Kevon up from school, and she immediately noticed that something was wrong. He was in a really foul mood. Kevon, like many teenage boys, turned to video games to escape, so that evening he planned to channel his frustration into playing games online. But the game kept lagging and the connection was slow. He knew that other people in the house were using the Wi-Fi, and in that moment, it was enough to push him further. Instead of asking for help or waiting for the connection to improve, Kevon took matters into his own hands. He accessed the router and he changed the password, cutting off the rest of the household and preventing them from reconnecting. But this sudden loss of internet didn't go unnoticed. Kevon's 13-year-old brother was the first to realise that something was wrong. Frustrated, he went to tell their mother, Latoya. And in response, Latoya unplugged the router and took it into her bedroom. But instead of diffusing the tension, it only made things worse. Now even more enraged, Kevon confronted his mother. Hearing these raised voices, Alexis rushed in, fearing the argument was about to turn physical. She stepped between her mum and her brother, trying to protect her mum and calm the situation. She wrapped her arms around Kevon in a bear hug, attempting to restrain him while telling him to chill out. But the two fell to the floor, wrestling and struggling. According to Latoya, arguments between the siblings were common, as it likely is in most households. She later said that they fought almost daily, and at first, she just believed that this was just yet another typical brother and sister dispute. But this time was different. Within moments, the chaos began to spiral beyond anyone's control. Kevon placed Alexis in a chokehold. Latoya and their 13-year-old brother screamed at him to let Alexis go. They were punching him and trying to pry his arms away, but nothing would work. They just couldn't break his grip. As the situation grew more serious, Latoya called 911 at 5:17 p.m, telling the dispatcher, "I have a 16-year-old son who is being disorderly." Just minutes later, unbeknownst to Latoya, her 13-year-old son also placed a call to 911. He stated, "My brother is trying to hit my mother." When asked if Kevon was on medication, he replied, "No, he's just crazy. He put her in a chokehold. He's threatening to beat my mum, trying to get him off my sister." Officers arrived roughly 10 minutes later. Latoya met them at the front door and told them that the two were still fighting in the back bedroom. But as police moved through the house, they didn't hear shouting. It was silent. Inside the bedroom, officers found Kevon still restraining his sister. He was ordered to let her go, not once, but twice. And when he did finally release Alexis, she collapsed to the floor unconscious. An officer immediately checked for a pulse and began CPR until the paramedics arrived. Alexis was rushed to the hospital and admitted to intensive care, but despite resuscitation efforts, she never regained consciousness. 19-year-old Alexus Watkins was later pronounced dead. The cause was cardiopulmonary failure and anoxic brain injury caused by prolonged oxygen deprivation. At court, a medical examiner testified that the brain can begin to suffer irreversible damage after just 3 to 6 minutes without oxygen, and after 10 minutes, survival without severe brain injury is unlikely. Evidence suggested that Alexis had been deprived of oxygen for at least 15 minutes. Kevon waived his right to a jury trial, opting instead for a bench trial, meaning the judge alone would hear the evidence and determine the verdict. By the time of the trial, he was 18 years old. After reviewing the evidence, the judge found Kevon Watkins guilty of felony murder and aggravated assault and sentenced him to life in prison, a sentence that some people thought was too long given his age. As the verdict was delivered, Kevon sobbed in court, "I'm sorry. I never intended to kill her at all. She taught me most everything I know." His defence team had argued for a conviction of voluntary or involuntary manslaughter instead, claiming the killing was not intentional, but the court rejected this request. In delivering her decision, the judge questioned how Kevon could have failed to have noticed when his sister had stopped moving. Admitting that this was the most difficult decision she's made on the bench since she started, she stated, "One of the things that kept coming to mind was, what we ignore, we empower. In this household, chaos was empowered. In this household, the ability to ignore and follow corrective discipline was empowered. There is no way I could justifiably acquit him as having done nothing wrong. I don't see this as an accident." She also ruled out voluntary manslaughter, explaining that the law does not allow it if a voice of reason and humanity was present during the act. She said the voice of reason and humanity that day was his 13-year-old brother asking him to stop. She went on to apologise that he had never been given the tools to deal with the chaos at home. The tragedy of Alexus Watkins is a stark reminder of just how quickly an ordinary argument can spiral out of control.